is to have a strategy, okay? So that you know exactly which pages to work on to be able to increase your traffic, signups, or customer in the short term. For this, we have a 3-step framework that we call the content promotion roadmap. And this is going to be one of the 2 spreadsheets that we will be giving away at the end. So the content promotion roadmap is basically a 3-step framework, all right? So step number 1 is to determine what we call the keyword difficulty baseline, which is essentially your website strength. Step number 2 is to analyze the keyword to find what we call quick win pages. And step number 3 is to do a deep dive analysis, which is essentially making sure that the search intent, content type, and the content quality make sense for the keywords that you want to target. Let's have a look at the steps in more detail. So keyword difficulty baseline. First off, this is a concept that was created by Robbie Richards at the SEO playbook. So credit for this goes to him. So the keyword difficulty baseline, what is this? The keyword difficulty baseline is a concept to essentially visualize like your site strength for the period like as it is right now, okay? So if you think about keyword difficulty, you probably think about the standard metrics that you have in Ahrefs. But the problem with those metrics is they're good as like a baseline kind of generic thing that you can use. But what we need to have here is keyword difficulty buckets that are customized for a specific website for the situation how it is right now, okay? Because chances are, if my website has a domain authority of like 10, for example, it's gonna be like much weaker than, for example, a site that has a domain authority of 70, right? So I want to know which keywords can I realistically rank for in the short term for my site, how it is right now. So to do this, we do 3 things. Step number 1 is we export the top ranking keywords, okay? So the keywords that a site is ranking for in position 1 to 3. These are the keywords that we know that our website is currently capable of ranking for quite easily, okay? So then what we do is we remove any falsifying keywords. So these could be the branded terms or any misspellings. So keywords that don't make sense, we remove them from the list. And step 3 is we assign the keyword difficulty buckets. So let's have a quick look at how this looks like in our spreadsheet, okay? This is an example of what we would call a weaker site or like a standard kind of site, all right? So you can see basically what you have here is the keyword difficulty level, right? 0, 5, 10. And what you have in the other column is the frequency, okay? The frequency is how many keywords you have. Oops. So how many keywords you have that are ranking for this specific keyword difficulty level. So in this situation, for example, we have 28 keywords that are ranking position 1 to 3 that have a keyword difficulty of 0, right? So then we have 97 keywords that are ranking positions 1 to 3 with a keyword difficulty of 5 and so on, okay, moving down the list. So the graph is pretty useful for us to be able to assign these keyword difficulty buckets. So easy, medium, difficult, and hard. So what we typically do essentially is just look at the bars here in the chart. So it's pretty clear that if I look at this, basically I could consider the easy bucket, essentially everything that goes from 0 to 10, right? Because this is the first kind of like bunch of keywords that I have here. So then it goes down. So then once it goes down, basically I consider this second bucket here as the medium bucket, right? So anything from 15 to 30, so to here is the medium bucket, and then everything from 35 in this situation to 70, right? So to here, kind of like, so when it goes like fully to 0, like almost, basically I consider this the difficult. And lastly, everything that's above 70 is the hard keyword difficulty bucket, all right? So then I type these ranges in here. And so essentially what I'm going to do next is take these to basically use them to prioritize my content promotion roadmap at the end. So the next slide is an example of the same chart for a site that is much stronger, okay? So you can see the difference in here. They essentially, the easy bucket for them is much bigger, right? So they essentially can quite easily rank in the top 3 for keywords that have a difficulty of 35, which makes it easier for them to be able to rank higher for much more difficult keywords. Okay, so everything, you can see the difference like quite easily, quite clearly from these two charts. All right. So once we did this, step number 2 is to get our quick win keywords / pages. So step number 1 for this is to export these quick win pages. The quick win pages are nothing more than our pages that are ranking between position 4 and typically position 20. So between the bottom of page 1 and page 2, all right? So right before the content graveyard gap. So what we're going to do next is to, again, remove the keywords that are not relevant. We're going to remove all of the brand terms, like everything that is not relevant to our goal, which in this situation is to make more revenue from our content, right? So any keywords that doesn't have some business potential or any misspellings and branded terms, basically we're going to remove from the list. So this is the initial filtering that we do. The next step is to assign the keyword difficulty buckets, right? So we're going to get these levels here, easy, medium, difficult, and the hard buckets, to basically assign them to the keyword list that we have to this point. So we know essentially, for example, like 30 pages are inside the easy bucket, and then the medium and so on. So this is useful for us to be able to prioritize the order of the pages that we're going to be working on. Step number, so also the other thing to mention in step number 3 is at this point, we also get conversion data. This is typically what we get from the clients directly. So it's very important, if you're doing this in-house, to have some kind of way to measure the like signups typically, or conversion customers directly from your content, which typically is at the URL level, right? So the more granular you have like this measurements, the better it can help you make a decision on which pages you should be working on. Step number 4 is to use all of this data to shortlist the pages that are the most important from a business standpoint. So let's say we have 300 keywords and we can only work on promoting 5 per month for the quarter, right? So we're going to select 15 keywords / pages, and those pages are going to be the one that we're going to be working on, right? And so the order that we're going to decide basically depend first off on the keyword difficulty buckets. So we're going to be prioritizing the keywords that are in the easy / medium or maybe difficult bucket, okay? Because we've seen that those are the ones that are basically, let me go back here, right? So what we want to do is prioritize the pages that are inside these like 3 buckets here to push them essentially as high as we can, all right? So the second thing that we're going to use to prioritize is the ranking position, of course. So if a page is ranking position 6 and another page is ranking position 9, then we're probably going to be wanting to push the keyword that is in position 6 first, right? Because that might be easier to get to position 1, like 3, 2, or 1. And lastly, the third thing that we can use to prioritize this list is the conversions, signups, and so the conversion data, okay? Because at the end of the day, if we have a keyword or page that is ranking position 6, okay, like it might be easy to get it in position 3, but if it's not like bringing you signups or conversion, then it doesn't really make sense. So we want to prioritize the pages that have some business potential, okay? So let's have a quick look at how the the spreadsheet looks like, okay? So this is the analysis spreadsheet in the roadmap template. So here we have all of those quick win pages with their volume, the position, the keyword difficulty. These 2 columns are the columns for the conversion data. In this case, they're empty just because this is a quick example that I did. And typically we get this data from the client, okay? The relevant column is what you use to mark the pages that are relevant or the pages that are not relevant. So you only proceed with the pages that essentially have a yes here. Then we have the keyword difficulty bucket column here. You can see we have assigned those keyword difficulty buckets based on the keyword difficulty that we have. And lastly, there's the shortlist column, which is basically the pages that we have selected because they might have conversion, okay? So in this case, we're only going to be focusing for the rest of the analysis on these 5 pages that we have in the shortlist. So moving on, deep dive analysis, right? So this is the last part of the roadmap, and it's also very important because essentially, if you want to build backlinks to a page, those links need to go to pages that have the on-page side of things that's taken care of, right? The better the on-page optimization is, the more the links that you build are going to be effective. So we don't want to go ahead and spend time, money, and resources in building links to pages where they're targeting the wrong keywords, or they're making some of the 3 mistakes that we mentioned before, okay? So step number 1 in the deep dive analysis is to check that the page is matching the content type for the keywords that it's currently ranking for. So content type is basically, so if you have a blog article, you want to make sure that the top 10 ranking pages are for the most part blog articles, and that's because that's what Google wants to show to people. Step number 2 is to check that the page is matching the search intent that's behind the keywords that it's ranking for. Search intent is basically like what the people that are searching for the keywords essentially are expecting to find, okay? So if it's informational, you don't want to have like a page that's just giving a free tool or a landing page, or basically things like that, all right? So you want to make sure that these 2 things essentially are matching from your page to what's ranking on page 1. And step number 3 is basically what we call a visual content quality check. Plus, we also run a content audit. The content audit, we typically use Surfer SEO, but you guys can use ClearScope as well. And I've actually just tested it right before the call, and I actually think it's better than Surfer. So yeah, what I would do is probably use Surfer in this case. What you want to do is to make a note of the content grade that you get from the report that you get from ClearScope, right? So let's say that your goal is to get an A or an A-, and your content is scoring a B or a C. For example, you know that you should improve that content before you move on to promoting it, all right? And step number 4 is once you have all of this data, then basically you take all of that and you make your best decision based on the data that you have in front of you, all right? So as I mentioned before, you can use the keyword difficulty buckets, you can use the conversion data, and you can use the search traffic potential or any other kind of data that you have inside the spreadsheet, right? This is what the right part of the spreadsheet looks like. So you have a column for content type, column for search intent, and a column for content quality. Okay, so you can see basically the first 2 columns is a yes or no, so whether it matches or it doesn't, and the third column is a yes, for otherwise to improve the page. So if you get a lower score, then you will mark it as improve, right? So you know that your content team needs to take the results from the content audit or the content report to essentially try to improve the content to get it up to par to what's ranking, right? So next up here, you have the content score. So you can write it down. Here, you can put the content audit link. And lastly, all the way to the right, you have the priority. So the priority numbers that you will have in here is the final kind of order for the pages that we'll have to work on for the quarter, all right?
Now, if you liked this ClearScope webinar snippet, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great tips and strategies from the industry's best SEOs and content marketers. Make sure to check out the ClearScope YouTube channel for more great content.